So I'm just waiting for slides. Here we go. I'm Markus. I'm chairman of the board of Startup Germany. And first of all, I want to say thank you, Elisa, for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here and to have the chance to talk in front of you. A few words about myself. Oh, okay. Mix it up a little. The picture up there, just want to say, even if I work for, or I started Startup Germany, I'm really a huge fan of Europe. And that's also a thing. One of the reasons why I came back from the US, where I started a business a couple of years ago in political fundraising. And after 3 years in San Francisco, I just decided for myself, I want to go back and focus a little more on what's happening here in Europe and in Germany, of course, since that's my home country. I try to be a little German, but not too much, so I want to focus on the facts, but also on the story we have to tell. Because I think over the last couple of years, in Germany, the startup community changed a lot. And I remember when I started thinking about a startup, like a tech startup for the very first time, almost no one in Germany believed that the internet was a staying thing. It was like, most of the entrepreneurs I talked to, or the old school entrepreneurs back from, 1960, 50, 40s, or everything that happened after World War II, like, okay, that thing you call the internet is here now, but we are quite sure that it will go away again. Well, obviously it did not, and so people started to learn about what that means. What can you do with the internet? What can you do if you use digitization in a better way? And this turned out to make Berlin one of the startup hotspots in Europe and maybe in the world. So just to give you, I didn't put them on a slide, but I want to give you a few numbers about Berlin, because that's obviously the strongest part in terms of tech startups of Germany. And this is just for 2014, we had around 1.1 billion in investments. We had 24 major exits and 2 IPOs. You might have heard about most of that. Basically, Zalando and Rocket Internet did these 2 IPOs. And I think that's a very important sign for Germany because, culture-wise, I'll put that away, it looks too crappy. Culture-wise, Germany is not a country where people are heading for an exit. So usually when people start a company, they think about something like, I want to build that company for me and my family. I want to build something staying, something which belongs to the family. And that whole exit-driven or IPO-driven way of entrepreneurship is not new, but for the biggest part of the German people, it's something they never thought about. So that's changing step by step, and Berlin is driving that change heavily because there's no such thing like a Germany. Even from the outside, it might look like one of the biggest economies in the world. It might look like one of the biggest countries in Europe. But if you dig in deeper, there are 16 states, and these 16 states, from Bavaria to Berlin, are trying to do everything to be like the most recognized and strongest part of Germany. So that makes it, in a way, harder to put the right regulation, the right policies in place. But at the other hand, it makes sure that Germany in general stays a strong country. And so let me show you a little bit about what's happening. Let's play the facts game. In terms of startups, we have here a study done by the German Startups Association, which is a lobby organization. That's not Startup Germany. We are focusing way more on education, entrepreneurial education, but we happily used their numbers, and they did a little research on where most of the startups are. And you see that 39% of the startups out of 903 are based in Berlin. And recently there came up a number, and I'm really not sure whether I should believe that or not, but that number is saying that in Berlin we actually have one startup founded every 20 minutes. Well, that doesn't say anything about how many of these startups will stay, but it shows that we get more and more attention, and we got a light tower in Berlin, which is not only recognized in Germany, but also internationally. And that's very important, because so far, most of what's going on in Germany is somehow hidden behind a wall of language. That's why I say, UK, it's way easier. You speak English, everything's in English. So from an international point of view, it's just way easier to understand what's going on there. Then number 2 and 3, Munich and Cologne. Why Munich? Yeah, well, Munich obviously is the richest city in Germany, and Bavaria as the state around that is very, very rich also. And Munich was, in the past, when Bonn was still the German capital and Germany was still divided, the hidden capital of Germany. And that's somehow what they still want to be. So if Berlin is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, of course, Munich has to move, and if it's necessary, they have to change something there to make it more attractive for new companies. But one disadvantage they can't get rid of is obviously, and that is from my point of view, also a big advantage for Berlin in terms of startups in the direction of London, it's the prices. It's way cheaper to have an apartment there. It's way cheaper to get office space than most other cities in Central and Western Europe. So that, of course, gets a lot of attention globally, and it makes a lot of people move there. Also, getting back to Israel, at the moment, a lot of people from Tel Aviv are moving to Berlin, which is, in a way, quite surprising, but also something I really like. And Cologne, again, and Hamburg, these are the 4 major hotspots in Germany for startups, tech startups, and 38% of the startups founded nowadays are somehow distributed all over Germany. So a little more about that. 81% of the entrepreneurs in Germany hold a university's degree. The average age is 39, and we have 77% of startups started with a team or in a team, not the single founders. And 77% of the startups founded with a team is a big difference to all the other companies which are founded in Germany, freelancing. So, because usually, the rest outside of tech startups is just 23% who found in a team or together with a team. So, network game. We have around 49% in the German startup community, which are serial entrepreneurs, which founded a company before that already. And the rest is first-timers here. But I want to go through that very quickly. The startups created over the last couple of years, in average 16.8 jobs within the first 32 months, and the next 12 months, so sums it up to 44 months, it gives like 28 new jobs. And this is what we figured out that our startups need over the next 12 months. All data from 2014. We need around 650 million euros to make all that happen or to make them grow. But what does that mean? Well, I talked a little bit earlier today about that Germany hasn't that venture capital structure like the Anglo-Saxonian countries, but we have a lot of money, obviously. So it's like 8 to 10 trillion euros sitting on bank accounts in Germany doing pretty much nothing. And that it's good for the people who own that money, but it's not good for the entrepreneurs. Because what exactly does that money do? Again, it does nothing. And what our mission is, partly since we are considering ourselves as the educators in Germany, we not only want to educate the entrepreneurs, we also want to educate the people with the money. How they can become business angels, how they can get to a point where they invest themselves or invest in venture capitals. But that, again, is a very hard game we play here, because Germany is very conservative. So if we talk to these people, I recently had a meeting with a few entrepreneurs, like old school entrepreneurs who already sold their companies. And we were sitting there on a table, and it was pretty much 250 million euros sitting on that table together with me. And I asked them whether they wanted to become investors, whether they wanted to become, to support entrepreneurs in Germany. And you know what the answer was? It's like, we could imagine, but just if it's not more than around 500 euros, we have to invest. That was the response I was getting. And that is something, which is very closely linked to that German way of looking for stability. Opportunity is great, but stability is what Germany was over the last 60, 70 years was counting on. Stability. And this whole startup game, this 650 million game, or even more, is nothing these people can understand. Then we tried to find ways how to commit them to invest. And the next thing we figured out is that whole tech community is nothing they understand. Still, even if they accepted that the internet won't go away again, what they still have is that thing where you say, internet, okay, that's email, that is great, but in which world is Facebook innovative? I have this little black book with all the numbers, all the contacts, and why should I need anything like a Facebook? This worked for me over the last 60 years. Why shouldn't it work for me over the next, or for the next 10 years? So again, what I'm saying is we have to educate also these people with the money what exactly digital means, what exactly investment, or what it means exactly to invest into startups and to give risk capital to these young people. And that's what we are working heavily on. Let me move on here. And this is our mission as Startup Germany. So, inspiration, inspire. Why is that so important from my point of view, every single country? It's important because nowadays, and again, speaking about Germany, it's like we do nothing to give people the feeling that becoming an entrepreneur is a great thing. What we do nowadays is, or still at schools, is that we tell people, make sure that you get good grades, make sure that you get the right job, a good paid job, and then make sure that you have an easy life. But that's not what we need today. But why Germany is maybe a little bit behind in that community, in that startup community, is also the reason we have a very strong economy nowadays. So unemployment rate in Germany is at the moment at 4.7%. So we have like out of 80 million people overall, 40 million people in the right age or who should work in a way. We have 2 million who are not able to find a job. And these people who are not able to find a job are usually very badly educated or lost their job in terms of like from the agriculture, from shop floor workers, stuff like that. So that makes it really hard to find people who want to start their company. And what we are doing is we give them like the people and the ideas, and we show the network that shows them that there's a career option in entrepreneurship, and there are huge opportunities for them, even if it's hard to get out of that safe job thing. And that's even if we have, again, another number, 4.8 million companies in Germany altogether, small to really big. You mostly don't see any or hear anything from these people. It's mostly about the association who do lobby work, and that is something people don't like too much. So that is, the ones who did it and who proved that it's possible to build something big are hidden in Germany, and that is something we want to change. And one way we change, Up Global was mentioned also by Guy. So it's like We are doing startup weekends since 2010 in Germany, and in Berlin I'm organizing them by myself, and that's a really great way to inspire people. Why? It's not exactly about that you teach people how to build a company, but what you show to people is that they're not alone. You create momentum by connecting people who are all the same, who are crazy enough, and keep that in mind, who are crazy enough to pay money to be able to work a whole weekend long. And that's exactly the kind of people you need. And that's the kind of people who support the whole infrastructure, because the bigger that network grows, the more people we can reach. And that's important, because otherwise, as I stopped or quit my job at United Technologies a couple of years ago, and I told my parents that I wanted to go to the US and work there or build a startup there, they looked at me and were like, "You crazy. You're completely crazy. You got a safe salary, you got everything you need, you could have a great life, but you give up everything like that for the opportunity to do more." Well, we ended up with more than $10 million in investment. We ended up with a nice office in San Francisco, and that changed their mind. But believe me, a lot of people, if their parents and friends or their family and friends approach them and tell them, "That's bullshit what you plan to do here, you shouldn't do that," they get a little insecure, and a lot of these people stop that journey before it even began. So this is why we believe in inspiration, and that inspiration is more important than every regulation on the other hand. Then the next thing we focus on is education. Education is available on a very broad scale in Germany. We have lots of universities, we have lots of tech centers, all that is there already. If you want to learn about accounting, everything you could imagine is there. But what we call education is something different. Because first of all, we want to make it available for everyone who thinks about being an entrepreneur in the future. And this is why we invented a model where we let the people with money, governments, big corporates, well, medium-sized businesses, pay for that education and let them do a little marketing. And that's how we finance all the other stuff. So we make sure that we deliver workshops, we have online courses, we have education videos, everything like that, and it's completely paid by private and public investors. And we also giving the people a little broader scale in terms of how to build a business. Usually when we leave Berlin, because Berlin, first of all, Berlin is not Germany. It's a very international crowd we have there. And secondly, if we leave Berlin in terms of that tech scene, we figure out that we are far ahead of everything that happens in the States, in Germany. And if some entrepreneurs start their journey somewhere in, I don't know whether you know the city, but let's say Koblenz. It's a 100,000 people city close to Mainz, so close to France. And if you start there, I talked to a guy, and he was like, I pitched my idea, and what people told me is, I should get some investment to hire a big sales force and then reach out to a lot of companies out there for an app builder. Imagine that, how big your sales force has to be if you want to cover the whole world. The German market is not big enough to be interesting for investors or VCs on an international level. So what we do is we give these people the idea and how they could do that differently, how they could use the internet to reach a lot of people out there. And that's very important as well. Change the way how business is done today to a thing where we are getting closer and closer to the successful tech companies. And then finally, we focus on support of startups. And what we want to create is, I spent some time in the Valley myself, and what I learned there is that what the Valley makes so unique in the world at the moment is that circle they were able to create. So you have young entrepreneurs, and they get support from the guys who already did that. These people, again, the few who are successful one day, turn it around and become supporters for the ones who come after them. And this is a vision we have for whole Germany, because honestly speaking, I don't believe that it's good to have just one hotspot. It's not good for the whole ecosystem, because it pulls so much money and talent and makes all the other areas in your country or in the world a little poorer, and that's not a good thing. So what we say is we create a hotspot and support that hotspot that started to exist in Berlin, and after that we reach out and strengthen the local hubs like Munich, Stuttgart, Cologne, and Hamburg, and so on, to make sure that entrepreneurs all over Germany get the opportunity to start. And then we reach out to them, we give them a hand and say, we are here. As soon as you can't continue your journey, you don't find enough money, you don't find enough supporters, whatever else, if you need something else, then please come to us, reach out to us in Berlin, and we make sure that we connect you to the right people, we make sure that you get the money you need and everything like that. So that's what we believe in. And so we want to create that innovation circle where you say, entrepreneurs become successful or start successful companies, get a lot of experience, then they move on, we support them, and we move them back and let them become the supporters for the next generation. That is what we focus on, that is what we want to do, and that's why we do Startup Germany. Thank you. Here we can see it. Thank you a lot for the attention. And I was thinking about, if you have any questions so far, it's like, please just come to me and I happily talk to you about everything I talk now and maybe even a little more in deep. It was a big pleasure for me to be here in Warsaw, and I hope I'll be back soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.